Welcome to the Geek Homeworld. I am your host, Ed, aka SavageTechman. We talk sci-fi, TV, movies, superheroes, and all from a geek perspective. You can find us on Blogger, Google+, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. We're everywhere. Join the Geek Homeworld. This is Ed, SavageTechman, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Geek Homeworld podcast. This is another special episode. This is in our Dawn of the League series with Justice League in theaters. We are recording these background kind of episodes here where we just give you a history of the characters featured in Justice League, the superheroes of the league. And we are talking about Aquaman. And when I say Aquaman, before Jason Momoa decided to take on the mantle of reinventing Aquaman as we know it in the modern age, Aquaman kind of, as I grew up, was very cheesy in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s with the Super Friends. He could talk to fishes, and it was just kind of a silly character and basically kind of a joke in the Justice League in a way. I mean, he was an important character in the Justice League, but he's been the butt of jokes. You know, I can telepathically talk to fishes. Well, can fishes talk back, telepathically? But he just had, there's been so many incarnations and different ways that the authors have tried to toughen him up. And when they were looking at casting Aquaman for Justice League and bringing him into the fold, they were watching Game of Thrones and saw Jason, who was playing Khal Drogo, and they said, he is just going to be our Aquaman. He's got to be. And I know a lot of females out there and more that just think he's going to be the hunk factor of this movie, and that's fine if that brings people and puts them in the seats. But more importantly is the storyline, obviously, for Aquaman. So he is the king of the seven seas. He can breathe underwater. He can swim at like really tremendous speeds. And, we've talked about on the podcast before about how Marvel does it perfectly and how DC just is playing catch up basically, because originally they were going to do a Justice League movie, and then they decided, no, we're just going to introduce we're going to do Man of Steel and then go from there. And it's definitely been a bumpy road for DC. And this movie, Justice League, just like we said, Batman versus Superman, has to work. Well, this and Wonder Woman, which worked perfectly, which exceeded so many expectations. And finally, we get Wonder Woman that's so great, it saved the DC franchise. And now Superman, who's supposed to be kind of like the center of it all, well, it looks like really Wonder Woman's the one to shine. So now that she's brought her game up, and that movie was such a runaway success, and rightfully so, now we can have a more balanced team. And I hope that in light of the success of Wonder Woman, that we don't see less of a role. If not, I want to see more of a role of, Diana Prince, Wonder Woman, in Justice League. But Aquaman, it was a harder way to make him what he is. And they're basically going off the New 52, which was several years back. And I remember when it came out, a friend of mine, Anthony, he said, I don't think this is going to work. This isn't going to last. And we were in agreement with that. We're like, wow, all this New 52, they're rebooting everything. And you know what? It stuck. Good parts of it stuck and are still around to an extent. And Aquaman, he has an extensive lineage, I guess you could say. He basically, there's been different incarnations. When you follow the comics, you get into so many different variations that it's hard to really do it, pardon the pun, but justice. And we first saw Arthur Curry, the king of Atlantis, with his super strength. He can talk to fishes. If I could talk to the fishes and swim with the fishes, I don't think you want to swim with the fishes. I don't know, but he does. But he can breathe underwater, so that's cool. You know, in some ways he's as strong on land as he is in water. And they played around with that, you know, when he's on land and when he's on water, you know. But he basically first appeared in More Fun Comics, was his first appearance, number 73 in 1941. So Aquaman has been around. His first appearance in the New 52 was Aquaman number 1. And that's where we have the current incarnation of what we have now and what we'll see in Justice League. And I'm glad that they finally kind of got his origin right. He is played off in the trailers as a pretty good badass, and he needs to be. As much as Wonder Woman needs to succeed, this Justice League movie has to succeed. We're getting to the point now, if this movie bombs, which is Batman versus Superman, I'm a defender of that, the Ultimate Edition, but if this movie fails, we've got issues then, and that's a big problem for the DC Extended Universe. So I have really fingers crossed and feeling good intentions, hopefully, for the success of this movie. I don't anticipate it being bad, but Arthur Curry, a.k.a. Aquaman, is going to help save the day. He's going to bring some badassery. That's a new word I created. No, but he's gonna bring that level of hopefully a king, and because we're gonna see he's gonna bring that strength that like a king of Atlantis would have, and he's not just gonna talk to the fishes and be in his little yellow leotards or whatever. He's looks pretty badass from the beginning. I'm like, whoa, this is a different Aquaman than we've seen, and if you follow the New 52, you got it. So I think the fans are going to be happy with his performance. I don't know that if he steals the movie, I don't know if there's a particular character that does. I hope that they all equally get their time and they shine in the movie. And I hope that, with that said, that we get a lot of screen time for each of them to develop their stories, because the big thing about how we were introduced to these characters was the fact that we saw them on a video screen in Batman versus Superman. We saw a little Aquaman and I guess a little Navy probe or something from the government or whatever saw him inside a sunken ship, and then he speeds away, in the water and all that. And then we see the Flash in the convenience store, and I realized they, and then the flashback kind of dream, whatever, flash forward, whatever you want to call it, premonition that Bruce Wayne has in the Batcave, and that kind of spurs Bruce on to, especially with the death of Superman. And, are we going to see Superman come back in this movie? We don't know. Is it going to be Superman in the black suit, kind of like in the comics? It's a very strong possibility. Is Green Lantern going to pop up? I'm hoping Martian Manhunter somehow makes it into this, but I really don't see anything out there saying that Martian Manhunter is coming into the Justice League. And I would love to do an episode about John Jones. He's one of my favorite underrated Justice League members. He's as important as a lot of them now. And I know I'm getting off on a little bit of a tangent here, but I go back to my days of Smallville, which in 2007, there was a spinoff pilot with Justin Hartley of Aquaman, and it was okay. It probably wouldn't have lasted as long as Smallville did, if at all. I don't think it actually got a season, but, we did get a decent pilot, and Justin Hartley did his best, but thankfully he came back to Smallville. They switched out the actor who was playing Aquaman and brought him in as Green Arrow. So we ended up not having, we didn't switch out actually, because they just had another guy who was Aquaman on Smallville, but we got Justin Hartley, and I think he was before Oliver Queen. He made a great Oliver Queen / Green Arrow, and so he did a very good job on Smallville of that character, and I really think he had embodied it in a way on the screen that we hadn't seen. Of course, what we have with Arrow or Green Arrow now is very intense and very visceral, and now we have John Diggle being the Green Arrow. Hopefully you caught up on your Arrow at this time. I'm sure you have, so you're with me on that. But I know I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent there, but when we talk about Aquaman, and we've seen the different incarnations on TV and the comics and everything, it's good to see when a character evolves, and you can see over time that, the superheroes aren't as cheesy as when we grew up. The X-Men look more militaristic than, even if you're watching the show The Gifted, which is actually pretty good. I'm caught up on that. I was getting caught up last night on that, in fact. And they're part of the mutant resistance. So, but, we look through all the films, the X-Men films, we look through, going from Christopher Reeve's Superman to Superman that we have now, Man of Steel, and Batman versus Superman, and all of the incarnations. And of course, with the times, the suits that they wear, the costumes or whatever, they have evolved, and we get a different look, a more modernized look for the heroes, and it works. To an extent, it works. And, you've got some of us diehards that say, we kind of want our Superman to be happy. We want our Superman to look the way Christopher Reeve did. But, that's 20, 30 years ago at this point. So we're not really going to get that, and we just got to let go of that. And we just got to, hopefully, when you take decades of comic lore and you try to create a character and update them for the current time, of course that's going to change. And, you have to be able to embrace that change and not, hold so rigid, unless, of course, we get into red and blue Superman. Oh, I just made some people upset back there, but I actually had that comic for a while. I was like, well, this is interesting, but now I look back and I'm like, wow, it was terrible, but there were a lot of different incarnations of Superman, so why can't Aquaman go through the same kind of transformation, as it were? And they have. I think they've got the right mix. We've got an Aquaman who can stand shoulder to shoulder with Wonder Woman and not be laughable. I don't know exactly how his powers are going to be in Justice League because I haven't seen it yet. But I'm thinking that his powers will be believable. I think they'll do it in the right way. I don't feel like that they're going to do this the wrong way. I think we're going to get an Aquaman that we can all kind of be proud of and say, yeah, okay, he's a pretty cool superhero. And, he's just, I hate to say this, but he's badass. That's what we need from Aquaman. So we've taken him from a laughing joke of the DC universe, kind of, you talk to fishes, to, yeah, you might communicate with them telepathically or however, and, they help you out, not so much do your bidding, but help you out in a bad situation. But you also have super strength, kind of like on the level of maybe Superman, Wonder Woman. You can kind of hold your own in a battle on land as well as in sea. So you're kind of a double threat if you think of it that way. And maybe that's how we're going to get Aquaman treated. It looks like that from the Justice League trailers and all that we've seen. Now, I think that this Justice League portrayal of Aquaman is going to be good. And I didn't plug this at the beginning of the episode, but I'm thinking of it right now. If you have not checked out other episodes in our Dawn of League series, I meant to mention that episode 34 is dedicated to Wonder Woman and her origins. That's Dawn of the League series. It's kind of something we did with Dawn of the Justice League and, Batman versus Superman, and then going into Justice League. And we've got some more coming. So we have episode 34, we have Wonder Woman. Episode 33 is Batman. I'm Batman. And episode 30 is Superman. That means we still have, at the recording of this, we've got Aquaman, we've got Cyborg coming, and then, of course, we've got the fastest man alive, The Flash. So, and definitely a different version of that Flash we're seeing versus what's very successful with Grant Gustin on CW there in the Arrow universe, I guess, Arrowverse, as they call it, on the Flash there on TV. So, what else can I tell you about the character of Aquaman? He's the king of Atlantis. We're going to see Atlantis, I think it's 2018, maybe 2019. At the latest, we'll see an Aquaman movie for real. And that's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be interesting to see how they talk underwater. I think we saw a little bit of the clip of that. So I don't know how that's going to work. I know it's not going to all be like telepathy, but he could. That does put him in a range with Martian Manhunter because, he's telepathic too. He has a lot of abilities that embody a lot of the Justice League members. In fact, Martian Manhunter, he basically, to an extent, he can hold his own against Superman. He's pretty good. I mean, he's Mars' sole survivor. There's a reason for that. And quote unquote, that's from Smallville. That's still one of my favorite incarnations of Martian Manhunter. And I would love to do an episode on that. I may have to. I keep mentioning that. But he should make it into this movie. If not, if there's a Justice League 2, I'd certainly like the inclusion of Martian Manhunter. So I'm putting that out there for anybody who might listen to this and say, hey, there's a character we need to bring. And thank you, Small Girl, for doing a very good job of that. And you've, of course, messed up some of the canon on that, but it's okay. So we said in the late 60s, I think it was 67 to about 70. I remember growing up in the early 70s watching the Super Friends and the joke of aversion. But that was fine for my age back then for seeing Aquaman. And then the 2007, we had the spinoff from Smallville with Justin Hartley. And we talked about that. So that pretty much, I'm not going to go into great lore here on, because there are so many, when I started really doing my research here on Aquaman, there are so many different rewrites there's about 6 or 7 different rewrites of the history of Aquaman. And so I'll kind of give you some homework to seek that out and then give us some feedback on that. If you're interested some more, you definitely want to check out DC Comics and see what the comics say versus what we've seen on TV. Because what we've seen on TV has not been that good. And other than the cartoons, you kind of got to take them for what they are in the time frame in which they exist. So I know you're going to go out and see Justice League. We need everybody to go out and really like this movie. The reviews have come in are mixed, and that scares me already because with that being said, if they're not completely on board, that worries me for the future of these team-up movies, and we need one day to have a Marvel versus DC movie, and I don't think if DC can't pull it together and do it successfully on the level that Marvel has, then I don't know. But I really, really have a hard time saying Batman versus Superman Dawn of Justice was a failure because, true, box office does not say if a movie is good or bad. There's been a lot of movies that have done well at the box office, which means people took their hard-earned money, paid a ticket or more, seen it several times, but still don't like the movie, which you just want to see it in action. And they might like things about it, but overall, and in time, it may not be, that particular movie may not hold up to scrutiny over the years, the decades, and stuff like that. But then you have the critics that pan it to death, or the really hardcore fanboys, fangirls that say, okay, you didn't totally do it the right way, but hopefully we can find a way that we can have a marriage between the two, between the canon of Aquaman, of all these characters, and we can bring it together with something new, because you want to move the characters along. You don't want them to be stuck in the past. You want to take what's good about Christopher Reeve Superman, bring some of that brightness into Man of Steel, which we didn't get. We get a brooding Superman. Basically, we get a Batman who's kind of Superman. It's really a Batman movie more than it was a Superman movie, but I'll still defend it because I think it was a great movie. It wasn't the best, but they could have done better. But you've got the disparity between the box office, which was 800-something million, and versus critics that tore it apart. And, that was a big divider, that movie, Batman versus Superman. So I hope that Justice League will repair some of the wrong things. I noticed the tone early on, which we talked about in previous episodes, has changed. It's more fun. Just like, think of Thor Ragnarok, which is such a success. Thor Ragnarok, it broke the mold. They got a new director, and it's a comedy, but it works, and it's serious enough. It doesn't take itself too seriously. They put the Hulk in there, and they've got that story arc that starts with Thor Ragnarok that will continue in both of the two Infinity War movies that are going to be just fantastic. And so with all that being said, hopefully we'll get it right, and hopefully that's where things are going to turn out for Justice League. So let's go out and support it. Let me know what you think of our episodes. We want to appreciate everybody who's been listening, gained a lot of new followers on our YouTube channel. So Geek Homeworld on YouTube, check us out there. I'm going to be doing more with that channel. I'm just still experimenting some things. So I've got some ideas of things I want to do with the channel, but you can always listen on Libsyn, geekhomeworld.libsyn.com. That's our main website. You can always follow us on Twitter at Geek Homeworld. So please check that out. Don't forget to check out our other Dawn of the League episodes that I mentioned. And yes, I'll plug them one more time. Episode 34 is about Wonder Woman and her origins. Episode 33 is about Batman and his origins. And episode 30 is about Superman and his origins. So part of our Dawn of the League series. So please go and check those out. And thank you for listening to another episode of the Geek Homeworld. This is Ed, a.k.a. SavageTechman, saying goodbye. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Geek Homeworld with your host, SavageTechman. You can find us on Libsyn, Google+, follow and interact with us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, listen to us on iTunes and leave a review, subscribe to us on YouTube, read our thoughts on Blogger. See you again on the Geek Homeworld.